rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
I was literally just thinking today, this morning, when are we going to find out when Skeleton Crew is going to premiere? I thought, well, they probably won't announce it anytime soon. I mean, the last show just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. They're going to wait a while, and sure as sugar, got the text that the premiere date had been announced. So we're going to be talking about that. And People.com's, I guess you could call it People.com. Used to be People magazine, still a magazine. But People has I guess they're just People now. They're a magazine, they're a website, a way of life. People has the exclusive. We'll be breaking that information down. Probably the most we've heard about Skeleton Crew so far. That's coming up here on Rebel Force Radio. Thanks so much for joining us. No, we're not going to let any moss grow. We're going to go right from one Disney Plus series right into the next Disney Plus series. You know what? I like the holiday time though. I like, when we had Mando there for a couple of seasons during the holidays. We had Ahsoka, I believe, over the holidays. It's a good time.
No, we didn't. We had Ahsoka last summer. Book of Boba Fett we had over the holidays.
Oh, how could I forget? Book of Boba Fett we had. So holiday, that December time frame has been good for Disney Plus and Star Wars. So we'll be welcoming Skeleton Crew as part of the family. But I tell you one thing you don't want to miss on this week's show, and that is Kyle Newman in the Cantina. We've been telling you about Kyle's very strong, but always thought out, reasoned, logical opinions about things, all things Star Wars, but his thoughts on the Acolyte. We're finally going to get to hear from him directly. If you're new to the program, welcome. We love having you. Introductions may be in order. If that's the case, my name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. We're back for more Star Wars conversation here on Rebel Force Radio. The conversation that I enjoy the most. The type of conversation that you can always save me a seat at the table for, because I want to be a voice at that Star Wars table, wherever it may be. And we're trucking through the summer, and the Acolyte is come and gone, but we have Rebel Force Radio to fill any Star Wars void you might be experiencing. And I think the month of August will be presenting us with a lot of good opportunities to get caught up with some old friends and some new friends. So we plan on bringing you some really interesting guests throughout the rest of the month. So stay tuned. You do not want to miss an episode of Rebel Force Radio. And this week, of course, our guest is he's our family, Kyle Newman. Kyle's got a lot to get off his chest. He's kept it bottled up, and I think he's about to explode at this point. We know that F.J. DeSanto has been putting some words in Kyle's mouth during his appearances on this show. So I'm curious and interested to see how consistent Kyle's opinions are with some of the thoughts that F.J. DeSanto has shared from him in previous episodes of RFR. It's always dicey when FJ is your spokesman. So That's why Kyle really needs to be on the show. And, of course, he's an industry veteran. He's a film director in his own right. He directed Fanboys, one of the greatest love letters to Star Wars fandom ever created in any medium. So when Kyle Newman talks about Star Wars, you want to listen. So I can't wait to get caught up with him later in this show. And we have, of course, like you said, Jason, Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
We have a premiere date. It is happening. I was actually beginning to think, oh, wait a second here. The Skeleton Crew thing. They shot it 2 years ago.
Right.
We've heard from sources that it's gone through some production difficulties along the way.
Yes, indeed.
Beyond things like global pandemic or writers and actors strike. No, this is like in-house. issues with the show. But I have faith in it. I like what they say about it bringing back memories of those old, kid adventure films from the 80s like Stand By Me or Goonies. And, of course, Jude Law brings a certain amount of gravitas and class to any role in which he takes. And it almost feels overdue. Like, Jude Law is one of those actors who's almost built for Star Wars. He seems to fit the role of who I predict he will be, someone who has a Force connection, maybe a Jedi in exile.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I've heard a lot of different things about this show, but I have to admit I haven't heard much over the course of the last year. So I'm really happy that we're going to be getting the Acolyte. We'll be getting Skeleton Crew
happens.
In the first week of December this year.
Yeah, well, with Jude Law, I mean, you have a bona fide sex symbol, a real movie star stepping into the role. But Jim, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a new sex symbol when it comes to Star Wars, and this really took me by surprise. Just when you think that you've heard it all, as a Star Wars podcaster, as a Star Wars fan, I couldn't believe this. It was not that long ago we were talking about the big news that there was finally going to be an open world Star Wars game, the Star Wars Outlaws, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's dropping at the end of this month. That's dropping August 30th. People are all excited. But what I did not know, and what I did not expect, is that the protagonist that is a droid, ND5, has become... ND,
okay.
Yeah, ND-5, has become a heartthrob.
Is that right?
Yeah. This is a commando droid. Now I'm going to put for you watching the video here, and you can get the video Patreon All Access. I'm going to put the video screen up here so you can see a photo of this character, ND5. So it's a commando droid, but he wears a trench coat.
And he wears a trench coat.
He wears a trench coat, and people are talking about how, Jim, if you look at that midsection, that kind of looks like abs.
He's ripped.
He's ripped.
He's got a six-pack.
He's ripped. He's got a scar on his face, which is, badass. And it's got the folks that made this game just absolutely baffled. Naveed Kavari, who worked on it, he said that he goes, the tweet started to pop up, and I immediately texted Jay. This is the actor behind the character ND5. Jay, get ready. But they insist that sex appeal was not on their mind. Sexy or anything like that was never used in development. The artwork was brilliant. I was blown away when I first saw it, and obviously that helped lead and guide what we ultimately came up with. But there's nothing sexy about he's talking about the actor having to sit with a skin-tight suit with all those markers, that mocap and stuff. But apparently, people on Twitter and all over the internet are talking about just how sexy this droid is. And I don't even want to... if I read the tweets, they would make you blush. Find them on your own. You can look them up.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you're looking at. I'm looking at a photo of this droid right now, and I don't know what you think, but I totally see it. I'm feeling it.
Next feeling it.
I'm getting Tom Selleck vibes. There's a little Brad Pitt to the jawline there, and something about the overall vibe is making me think classic Burt Reynolds from the 70s. I'm on board.
Okay,
I'm on board.
I mean,
with
Arnold
this sexy
Schwarzenegger
droid.
as the Terminator. Maybe I get it. I've never heard of a sexy robot, a sexy droid. But
there's been a few of them. I think even in Star Wars history, if you remember the old Shadows of the Empire Expanded Universe game, Prince Xizor, whatever his name was, the green guy, he had a fully functional blonde bombshell of a droid that
really,
I
do not remember.
Yeah, she would service him, or he would get intimate with her. I don't know how it worked, but and of course, in recent Star Wars canon, we have Lando.
Well, I was going to say, can we keep Lando away from ND5 here forever? Everyone's
And
benefit.
well, no, he's a one droid guy. He's got L3, and while she's no longer around, she does live on in his heart.
And in the Falcon memory banks. But I thought it was very interesting that this was, it says, never underestimate Star Wars fans' ability to lust for the unlikeliest beings in the galaxy far, far away. There's something a little depraved about this, but this commando droid is going commando, sans the trench coat in this new video game that drops at the end of August. We can't have Leia in the gold bikini anymore, but people can have this sexed up robot.
We do get to spend some time seeing this droid without the trench coat on screen. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I want to know if we're going to get full frontal. Why do you think they call it the commando droid? He's going commando. No underpants.
Wow. Anyway, that almost deserved to be an unthinkable, but anyway, I thought I would point that out.
Let's make it unthinkable. Play the thing. Play the music, and then it's a fish.
All right.
It's unthinkable.
That's one sexy droid. All right. Let's get a little palate cleanser in there, and let's hear what you have on your mind with a little listener mail.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. My name is Trey Rick. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. A long-time listener, about 7 years now. Just first time, well, not my first time calling, but I think first time leaving a voicemail. Just wanted to say I really enjoyed the ACOLYTE after shows that you all were doing or did for us. Those are great and had a lot of good insight. I wanted to add something to it that I don't think was touched on. Maybe it was. Maybe I didn't catch it, but I thought it was really cool how Kanye tasked May with killing the 4 Jedi that were involved with the all the scenes on Bryndock, and she's tasked with at least killing one of them with no weapon. And she kills 3 of them with weapons, so I guess poison if you want to consider that one. But then the last one, Saul, she has to kill with no weapon. She decides not to do it. And then ultimately, we figure out that May and Osha are the same person, and Osha eventually kills Kymir Saul with no weapon. By force choke. I don't know if that would be considered a weapon or not, but just wanted to know if y'all think that counts, that she completed May's task, or I guess her task as well, since they're the same person. And that kind of wrapped up that whole journey and mission that May was originally on. I don't know, just food for thought, something to think about. That was kind of cool, and haven't really heard anybody talk about it. I just want to know what you all think. But thank you all. Have a great weekend, and yeah, bye.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the call. That's kind of an interesting idea. The place where it falls apart, though, is Kelnaka. With the other 3, it all lines up. Torben was not killed with a weapon. He chose the poison. Indara was killed by May. So if they are the same person, and if Osha is actually the acolyte, then she did, by being the same person in a way, kind of kill Indara in an indirect way. And then obviously with Saul, it was a force choke. Where it falls apart and gets like less interesting is Kelnaka, because Kymir killed Kelnaka. So it's one of those where it could have been real interesting, but the Kelnaka thing kind of blows it. So there's no pattern.
And and also it's made very clear throughout the narrative that while they may have these identical physical attributes, these are still 2 different people acting under their own free will. This is made very clear from the moment they're children to the moment they're adults. It's just a set of circumstances that then had them sort of flip-flopping roles, which is an interesting part of the narrative for sure. But I wouldn't then say, well, all of May's achievements and failures are Osha's, nor would I say all of Osha's successes and failures are May's, because in my mind, they are very clearly two separate individuals.
Yeah, no, you're right. It would be cheating and as you point out, go against the written narrative and what's in the dialogue. So it is one of those, I guess, you might say it was foreshadowing of how Saul was eventually going to die. It was the whole without a weapon thing was done like a lot of things in the Acolyte, a little sloppily. It was sort of tossed out there.
There was no significance applied to it because in my mind, and I sometimes think like a Sith, I admit it, I do that. And a kill is a kill. It doesn't matter if you do it with a weapon or without, or if they do it themselves, as long as you do something to force the issue and walk out of there, leaving your opponent in the dust, I think that's what a Sith strives for. And it's all semantics if it comes down to with or without a weapon. The weapon just makes it easier. And isn't the path to the dark side supposed to be an easier road?
Yeah, like you would take advantage of everything, every tool, every opportunity.
You feed your desires, you feed your ambition, and you'll do so with whatever is within hand's reach.
Yeah.
So
actually
arm's reach.
Saying, to setting that goal to kill a Jedi without a weapon, it actually seems very un-Sith-like in a way. Because it was about civility or whatever it was, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I do think that there was what's implied is an ability to wield certain powers, and I think it was foreshadowed with what later was Osha's turn and consequent use of the dark side and the Force choke and all that. But I mean,
that is what a Sith does. If we're looking at Darth Vader as the prime example, a guy can walk in the room, you can rub him the wrong way, Admiral Mahdi, and the next thing you know, you're choking on your lunch and you can't breathe. And that's just Vader toying with you. Yeah. Others like Admiral Ozzel and Captain Nita, they got the swift justice of a Sith Lord who has lost his patience.
Right, and Captain Antilles. Although that was a physical choke.
But Vader's using that as a form of punishment, the ultimate punishment. This is a case of revenge. And also with a young Force user like May, under the guise of Chimere, May has been given this mission to tap into the dark side powers and kill without a weapon. And I think if I was to fill in the blanks, which Lord knows this series makes us do an awful lot.
Yeah.
I would think that Chimere is he is testing May, not teaching her a lesson like May says. Or maybe it is. I mean, that's certain point of view stuff. But he wants to see how strong her connection is in the Force and how she can use the power without a weapon and simply just use the dark side of the Force like Darth Vader did to kill an enemy. Again, there was no challenge presented to Vader, too, by those Imperial officers. May is being sent out to kill 4 Jedi Knights. So it's a much more extreme task to pull off for someone who is so inexperienced and young. But to Chimere, that's his way of training her, I guess.
Yeah.
And trying to tap into her anger, her fear, her aggression, her desire for revenge, and use that to open the dark side of the Force up to her. Because remember, we've never really seen a dark side user train an apprentice before. I mean, Palpatine said some things to Anakin, yes, but I mean, really, we have not gotten into it like AKA Yoda on Dagobah training Jedi.
Right.
We haven't seen the other side of the coin of that. And this is the first time we're seeing it. So we know that the path to the dark side is an easier path than to the mastering the light side. And it's what does Yoda say? Quicker, easier, more seductive.
You're right.
But I think then in the case of a Sith master, when training an apprentice or an apprentice training an acolyte, they also are looking for quicker, easier, more seductive ways to train their students.
Seduction. Chimera was all about seduction in a lot of ways.
I think we see a lot and accessing his desires and tapping into anger and maybe occasionally fear. There was one part where he displayed a sense of fear, and that's when Osha put the mask on and couldn't breathe. And he tried to help her, and he couldn't. And you could tell there was some fear motivating that entire moment for him. I still don't understand why his eyes turned all black.
Yeah, I don't get that
Osha
either.
striking out at him. That part I don't understand.
And it alludes to and harkens back to the witch magic. Yeah. Hey, while we're talking about Acolyte and weapons, this caught my eye over the last week. This was posted over at on the official website, where they did a little deep dive here on the bleeding of the lightsaber, which we spent some time talking about it. And so I thought it was interesting to actually hear from the creatives, in this case, Julian Foddy, who was the effects supervisor. It's actually a great write-up all about some of the special effects work, including the on-set sabers that they were using while filming this, which has become the norm. I think they started doing that with maybe even the dark saber in the Mandalorian episodes, where it's actually on set. They're using it, and they tweak it maybe a little bit in post, but for the most part, the blade's there. So this piece ran on the official website, so check it out. This is about bleeding a saber.
I think the most fun I had was breaking down the insides of a lightsaber. The main reason we wanted the crystal to be bent was that when Osha finally picked up the hilt, you could see the crystal was actually touching her hand.
How this has always been described is bleeding a crystal. So ultimately the effects looked more almost like blood flowing into the crystal. And we actually augmented that by adding visible veins to Osha's hand at the moment, and somehow her emotions flow through her skin into the crystal, making it change colour.
So there you go. I mean, they went so far as to making sure, and that's something that I didn't notice when I first watched it, and this really brings it out because they're actually showing you some of the effects work and as they're laying it on top of the footage. But the exposed crystal, it being so exposed that she's actually touching it, veins, from her hand going into it. So they certainly didn't spare any details with that. I think they were very true to the lore, which was new to me. I didn't really understand the bleeding of the crystal.
No, and I love the creativity behind it and the rationale behind it all. And I love the fact that Lucasfilm is once again showing respect to the great weapon of the Jedi Knight. And we can say whatever we want about the Acolyte, but at least no one took saber strikes to the midsection that pierced all the way through them and they just rubbed it off and was ready to go in the next episode. Reva, Sabine, Grand Inquisitor.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real loss of all Star Wars senses. When something as stupid and ridiculous like that happens.
Over and over again. That's what's so amazing about it.
They're trying to establish something by doing this. And
like a meme? Is it meme? Is it, Jim, is it like meme culture, meme theory, meme mentality? Like, hey, things become a thing. We've talked about this, whether it be blue milk or it's a trap. They want to make the saber through the gut like a thing.
You bring up culture, theory, mentality. I say throw all that out the window. It's just stupidity, really, at the end of the day.
That's the only label we need for it.
I mean, it's just really stupid. And that's why Lucasfilm needs to tighten it up. So whatever you say about the Acolyte, though, they at least didn't violate the physics of lightsaber duels and combat and the power of a saber. And it was all very crystal clear through the quality of the saber duels, which is another really high mark that the show established. And, so, I mean, we can talk about all the things where it missed its mark and stuff, but there are many moments throughout the series where it does hit a solid landing, at least for me as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and in the article, too, I know there was a lot of talk about the lightsabers and how they look different from even the prequel films, even a little different from the sequel movies. They're doing a lot of stuff in the ACOLYTE, including the sabers, practically on the set, down to the point where when the sabers clash against each other, there's someone off camera that's turning up the luminosity of the saber, so they're creating that clashing effect right there in real time, and there's something kind of cool about, like theatrical about it. Like I work in the theater, and you don't get the opportunity in live performance to do a lot of special effects. Everything has to be practical and in the moment. So there's something I think kind of neat about that. Though a lot of people complained and said it doesn't look like the sabers in the original trilogy, and but I didn't really have a problem with the way the sabers looked in this show, to be honest.
No. And they had a lot of sparks now when sabers connect. Back in the old days, they can just really make a bright spot happen on the screen to convey the sense of impact between two fantasy weapons made out of light.
Yeah.
Laser swords, if you will. We've all seen lasers before. And it takes a really high-powered one to actually pierce your skin and things like that. I mean, a lot of times we could just reach up, like at a concert or something, put our hands up into it, and it doesn't do anything.
Right.
But I just like to see how they've taken these new technologies and they've really brought evolution to the lightsaber. And I'm really not one of those guys who demands that all lightsabers look exactly like they did in the original trilogy, because you can freeze frame a lot of moments, especially in A New Hope, where you'll see a metal stick and some faint animation glow around it. And
we love it. It's charming, but come on, we can make progress, right? We can. George would never have stood in the way. He would have never been beholden to, we're going to keep it looking like the old stuff. No.
I think it's important story-wise that the lightsaber always maintain its integrity as a deadly weapon, and one in which strikes fear in the hearts of anybody who's on the other side of it, and also great for dueling. That's what I want. But I'm also, my mind is wide open to the special effects technology helping a weapon like the lightsaber evolve as future Star Wars storytelling is being told. So I like seeing that. I like seeing different aspects. I like the sparks. I like the smoke, occasional smoke, all of that stuff. And the bleeding, the crystal, seeing the blade turn from blue to red. I thought was a really awesome visual moment in the, for the history of Star Wars. We'd never seen that actually happen.
Yeah.
It's been revealed in the pages of a book, but not visually seeing it in live action ever.
And there were some people, and I include myself on that, till I thought about it some more. We talked about it on the after show and in seeing this, that thought, oh, well, that's an indication that Osha's even more powerful than Anakin. And a lot of times, as fans, we want to see Anakin / Vader as being sort of the apex of something. So we don't really want to see his significance, his power supplanted by, a minor player in the Star Wars universe. And these characters in these series are minor players, and you compare them to someone like an Anakin / Vader. But the reality is the circumstances of what was happening in the moment during the duel were different. It wasn't a question of Osha being more powerful than Anakin / Vader. It's just the circumstances were different.
Yeah, and many Jedi throughout the history have done that to a lightsaber crystal, make it bleed. It doesn't necessarily mean they're selling their souls to the Sith, but they're selling their souls to the dark side.
Yeah.
And that's a very bad place to be if you're a Jedi. And I kind of enjoy this visual representation of the actual turn. We can see it. I think with Anakin, he had those yellow eyes on Mustafar.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's it. He's committed. He's committed. But there are no characters in the Acolyte reflecting on what went down on Brendok, saying there's still good in Osha. In Revenge of the Sith, Natalie Portman says it. She says there's still good in him. Padme says it. There's still good in him, which indicates that even though he had the yellow eyes, even though he force-choked Padme, even though he dueled with Obi-Wan and fell to the lava and his humanity was burned away from him, there was still something good about the guy. But, you know, if you open up that lightsaber, take the crystal out and put it in his hand when he's going, I hate you, you put it into his hand. Well, you can't put it into his hand, I guess. He's got no hands.
Maybe lay it under his nub.
Let's keep that in mind, too.
Right.
Can Anakin bleed the crystal with his bionic hand?
He cannot. No.
And then, you know, narratively speaking, it would be really weird in A New Hope when Ben said, your father's lightsaber, he wanted you to have this when you were old enough. And then Luke lights it up. It's a red blade. He goes, oh, shit, my dad was a Sith? You know, you can't. It derails everything. So.
Right, yeah, no. It all works.
There's boundaries we have to work in here. And it doesn't mean Osha is more powerful than Anakin or any of that crap.
Yeah.
When you start peeling away the layers.
For sure. All right. Well, if you're hungry for more Rebel Force Radio, I'll tell you one place that never takes a vacation, and that's Rebel Force Radio on Patreon.
Yes. Patreon. That's really like the Rebel Force Radio playground, where we get together with all of our friends, our classmates, and it's recess time, and we have a good old time. And, of course, RFR and Patreon is where you can go to support Rebel Force Radio to make sure that this show remains in your earbuds for years to come. And also, we reward you for that, and we provide you with bonus podcasts, full show video, ad-free shows, early bird releases, and just access to a great community of Star Wars fans. And an example of some of those great bonus podcasts we offer, we have RFR RPG, where it's myself, Tyler Page, and RFR VIP Matt Rashid, and we're actually playing Star Wars RPG games. Edge of the Empire, I think we're playing. And I don't even know. We've been doing this for years. And sometimes I'm a deer in the headlights when it comes to this RPG stuff. But man, do we have a lot of fun crafting these stories. My character is Podcastus. And my sidekick is Tyler Page, who is Grando the Grand. And Matt Rashid is the game master. And the latest episode, RFR RPG number 18, Negotiating with a Blaster. The action continues as Pod and Grando investigate the mystery of Grando's missing family while encountering many unsavory scoundrels and galactic scum aboard the space station known as the Wheel. Oh my God, I want to know more. And you can. If you join RFR on Patreon, you will get access to RFR RPG. RFR Q&A is a show we put out weekly, and it's available to every member of RFR on Patreon, only $1, and you're listening. And this show comes out every week, RFR Q&A. Recently, myself and RFR VIP Ben Stein, we discussed the evolution of the Jedi Order, and also full show video accompanies the RFR Q&As as well. Through our conversation, Ben breaks down how the Jedi Knights have been viewed throughout history, the history of Star Wars. There are many certain points of view at play here, and Ben breaks it all down from the original film from 1977 through The Phantom Menace, The Acolyte, and even novels like The Living Force by John Jackson Miller. So that's a show you don't want to miss. And just this week, we released a new episode of RFR Q&A, RFR Q&A number 213, San Diego Comic-Con Report 2024. RFR VIP Tanya returns to the Q&A, and she is a San Diego resident, and she lives within walking distance of the convention center, so she knows what she's doing when she's walking the hallways of San Diego Comic-Con. So she gives us her full report from last weekend's big event. You can find out which Star Wars exhibits were on display, including costumes and props from the Acolyte, and Tanya shares a lot of her purchases and adventures from throughout the weekend. So that's just a mere snapshot of what's happened within the last week at RFR on Patreon. And did I mention it's the greatest community of Star Wars fans? We have a community hub where fans interact, and there's chats everywhere, and a lot of familiar names. If you listen to the show week after week, we talk about our VIPs. We love them, and we love all of our RFR Patreon supporters. So go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio and support Rebel Force Radio. There are many different ways to do it. The higher the tiers, the more access to entertainment, Star Wars entertainment you'll get at Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. So once again, that's patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. I hope to see you there.
This is Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force, with Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack. The galaxy is listening.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
Oh, we've got great news this week. We have a premiere date for Skeleton Crew. That's right. We'll be back with more Rebel Force Radio after shows starting December 3rd, 2024, just in time for the holiday season. We'll be all festive. We'll be cozy and nestled in our warm homes and talking about this newest Disney Plus series, Skeleton Crew. And as you said earlier, Jim, this has been in the can for some time. There have been some rumors about there being needing to retool this in places. There have been some rumors about Lucasfilm itself not being overly pleased with the show. Now, I would say that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. You might roll the dice on that and say, you know what? If Acolyte met all the expectations of Lucasfilm, and yet Skeleton Crew is perhaps falling short, or maybe there's some concern, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to like it. Doesn't mean that I will either, but
something I've learned over the years throughout my interactions with Lucasfilm is that they're very politically motivated. And a lot of how they see things, they see it through this political spectrum, whether it be real world politics or industry politics or Star Wars politics. Everything is sort of seen through this prism over there. And they have a lot of different creatives working on the show. And I'm not saying that there's any kind of political differences between the Skeleton Crew and the executive suite at Lucasfilm. But I'm also saying that when you hear rumors like Lucasfilm is not happy with the direction, I'm just saying, allegedly,
right?
Not happy with the direction of show creator John Watts or anyone from Dave Filoni to Jon Favreau to Tony Gilroy, whatever. When you hear that, you're right, Jason. You have to take it with a grain of salt because you don't know why the pushback occurs unless you're actually there. And like I said, we've heard that there were production difficulties along the way with this show from pretty damn good sources. But I'm also not going to try to fill in those blanks because I think we really should just wait to see what the show is all about. Everyone sort of has their own definition of what good Star Wars is these days. And it's all very subjective at the end of the day because the Star Wars that you hate the most, there's another fan sitting right next to you who considers that their favorite. And you could debate it till you get red in the face, but I mean, people do as people do.
You're not going to change anybody's mind. And why do you want to convince somebody or try to convince somebody that something that they like isn't good? Now, you can question whether they're being honest with themselves based on the conversation that you're having. Because I've seen people jump through hoops, where you can tell, I don't know if you really believe what you're saying. So it's all very individual. But at the end of the day, I'm with you, Jim. Let's wait and see what we have with this show. I'm just trying to say that even if it's true that Lucasfilm is maybe a little disappointed or had some issues with the creative direction, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to like it or that somebody might not like it because, our opinions may vary from Lucasfilm. But let's get into this. So this is
just to wrap it up, all we have to do is look at recent history and look at Rogue One, which was certainly, it went through hell along the way, through development and production and post-production, shooting, everything. And it seemed pretty bleak. But it actually turned out to be probably the most acclaimed Star Wars film that has been released since Disney acquired the property. So, at least among the fan base.
Yeah.
We all know that The Force Awakens was the biggest box office smash of all time, but I think if you talk to Star Wars fans who really care about the franchise and who live the fandom lifestyle like we do, I think you'll find an overwhelming majority consider Rogue One to be the best of the theatrical releases under the Disney umbrella. So, I'm just saying, whatever happens during production, we don't know. We're not there.
Right.
It's more frustrating to me when big projects get announced and we don't ever see them come to light. And there's a lot of those still on the table right now. So let's just be thankful that Skeleton Crew is actually getting released.
Yeah.
Because I was getting kind of suspicious about an actual release for this show. I mean, just a mere week or two ago. So let's see what kind of information's been revealed about this.
So an exclusive from the folks over at People, and they released a series of photographs. This is all online. I don't know what's in the newsstand floppy copy, but this is all online. So some new details. Let's start with the premise. We've heard a lot of this before, but when four kids make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet, they get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home, meeting unlikely allies and enemies will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. We also get treated in this piece to character names. We've got, these are the children. We've got Wim, KB, Neil, and Fern. And we're looking at a photo right now of Neil. And Neil is the little elephant guy. What's the species?
The Max Rebo?
The Max Rebo, yeah.
Yeah, Ortolan, I think they're called. Ortolan. I don't have an encyclopedia memory of.
That's all right. We all know he's the elephant guy. He's the Max Rebo guy.
He's the Max Rebo.
So Neil is played by Robert Timothy Smith, and Wim played by Ravi Cabot-Conyers. So there's a photo of them, and Jim, they've got these bikes. These what are they calling them? Is it hydro bikes? Shoot, I just had
speeder bikes, like kids speed, like BMX speeder bikes.
Yeah, right. It's not like speeders like we've seen in Mandalorian and Return of the Jedi. These are definitely like a kid version of these things. So it's the Star Wars equivalent of jumping on your Huffy, or
essentially. I mean, look, even down to the handlebars, and then at the end of the grips where you have the sort of stringer,
a little tassel.
Things. I used to
tassels. Yeah.
When I rode around my bike in the 70s, I had that. I had a Schwinn, a red Schwinn. It was sweet, and I had tassels for a while until they invariably got destroyed and worn off through all of my adventures. But these are the speeder bikes the kids are riding, and look at what's the name of the boy character?
We've got Wim, W-I-M, Wim.
Look how he's dressed. He's almost dressed like he's like Tom Sawyer or something.
Yeah, he does.
There's just something like almost Amish about his
right.
world.
Yeah. Very early American. Very plain earth tones.
Yes, I'm getting very much a like 1920, 1930 kid vibe.
Like mom made these clothes. Like they look homemade almost.
John Watts talked to People magazine, and regarding these little speeder bikes, he says they had like little bikes and they were on rails, so they like slide back and forth left and right so they could turn and bank. And in reality, it looks like completely insane for the kids. The main direction was stop smiling because they were having so much fun. All right, so like he's pulling the curtain back and shooting it, not really revealing any information about the kids' speeder bikes themselves.
But you look at you were talking earlier about Goonies or Stranger Things. Kids or even E.T. Kids on their bikes. That was a hallmark of the 70s and 80s. It certainly was for me growing up. I went everywhere on my bike. And I got to say, my neighborhood to this day is a pretty good bike neighborhood with the kids. Both my kids, especially my son, rides a bike. But I do think it's something that's not seen as much as it used to be. I guess it depends on where you live. But boy, like I said, when I was growing up, we rode our bike everywhere.
Well, and of course, Universal Pictures has really used that image of Elliot and E.T. on the bike flying in front of the moon in so many of their promotions and title screens and things. I definitely was the type of kid who left the house in the morning and didn't come back until after sundown, touring the Chicago suburbs on my bike all day.
Yeah.
And when I look back at it, it really amazes me, like how far I rode my bike from all the times. And then just the typical neighborhood stuff where you'd be hanging out in the cul-de-sac with a bunch of other kids and somebody has some fireworks or something. I mean, just the old fun stuff from being a kid and having that independence only a bike could give to a kid. Nowadays, I see a lot of kids on bikes, but they're all on the sidewalks trying to kill me and my dog. And we're just walking, minding my own business. And of course, I got the ear pods in. I'm listening to like a Star Wars audio book or John Williams soundtrack. And all of a sudden, some maniac flies by me at 20 miles an hour and mere inches away from me and my dog. I'm scared for my life with these kids nowadays. So, so maybe speeder bikes would be more preferred. I'm looking forward to that technology becoming a thing so they can just fly over us. I'd be down with that.
Here's another shot from the show. In this here, we've got KB, played by Kiriana Cratter, and Fern, played by Ryan Kira Armstrong. So a couple of, actually, this looks like a tandem bike, kind of like a motorcycle where you have the sidecar. I see this.
I'm thinking the Bat Cycle from the old 66 Batman show.
Yeah, right.
Very much, Robin. And what was cool about that show is like Batman could like drive up to the Batcopter and then he would just release Robin in that sidecar. And Robin would just sail up to the helicopter. Right. Batman would park the bike and they would get out separately. Maybe that'll happen in Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, but these, there's something really simple about these bikes. I mean, they're just like a bicycle where they're constructed mainly by pipes, rods.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, these are not speeders, and I'm mainly describing this for our audio listeners. These are not speeder bikes like we're accustomed to seeing. These are definitely something you look at it and you go, oh, this is what a kid would ride. But they look like they're having fun. They do obviously go above ground, above ground. So they're not pedaling these things. At least it doesn't look like they're pedaling them. And they are flying essentially.
Yeah, I love the retro look. It reminds me of my old 1973 Schwinn Stingray that I used to ride around, even down to the color. And then this girl, she has a very Geordie LaForge type of visual device over her eyes. What's her name? Is this Fern?
Is KB.
KB. Like probably something acknowledging the great history of shopping malls and KB toy
I think
stores.
so. It's K. It's literally letter K and the letter B. So
I purchased many Star Wars action figures. Yeah, they were vintage, but back in the day they were new, and that was at KB stores.
Right, and she's got fingerless riding gloves, and then her compatriot here, in this case, is Fern. And so she's just got kind of like a jacket, like an overcoat. She also has some gloves on, and
nice.
I'm definitely getting those Goonies / Stranger Things kind of vibes here, that these are kids with a real independent streak, almost like a family of friends, that kind of bond that you have with your neighborhood, the kids that you grow up with in the neighborhood,
the local gang.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that could be many different things depending on your neighborhood, but your crew when you're a kid,
right?
That's so important, and like I said, the bike riding and everything, it just gave us such independence and such great reach, where we could be masters of our own domain when it came to what we did with our time.
Right. Now here's another photo. I feel like maybe we've seen this photo or a photo similar to it previously, but it's probably the best version that we've seen. So we've got Wim here on the left with Jude Law, and Jude is confirmed to be a Jedi Knight. And
he is? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I was hearing that 2 years ago, so I don't know if things change or what goes on, but...
And his name is Jod Nawood.
Janad Nawood.
Jod Na, kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn. We got 3 words here.
Yeah, right.
Jod Nawood. Mm-hmm. And then there's KB with now in this case, so KB has that visor thing you were talking about, the Geordie LaForge visor, and then we've got Neil again, the little elephant dude, and Fern.
Kneel before Jod. That's his name, Jod. Nawood. Jodna. Kneel before
Jodna Nawood.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. Kneel before Jod.
So here they are. It looks like it's kind of hard to tell where they're at, maybe on a ship or somewhere. And it's...
I say a ship. They're like, yes, because you see this chair back there, and on the left there's some computer lights or something. It looks like they're in the hold of a ship. Jason, you're zooming in on Fern to see what the patch is.
Yeah, she's got a leather jacket on, and it looks big. So I'm guessing that this may be like her mom or her dad's jacket, perhaps. So maybe she's wearing that for, sentimental reasons or what have you. And there are these patches here, and these are symbols and maybe Orabesh writing that I'm just not familiar with. It's hard to sort of make out, but they're definitely establishing a history here, I think.
Yeah. And I believe the premise of this show is a Lost in Space kind of thing. Stranger Things meet Lost in Space meet a galaxy far, far away.
Right.
I have to say, just judging from the photos alone, the vibe I'm getting off of Jude Law is kind of consistent with a Ewan McGregor take on Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I feel
they're
that
of
way
similar
too.
age.
Right.
And there's just something about, I don't know, his presence in these photos that gives me that vibe. He could be a vastly different character, and I hope he is, than Ewan's Obi-Wan. But there's just this sense of consistency, I feel, also between the two actors and their two characters, merely based on viewing
Looks
a photo
only.
on surface level.
Jude Law is quoted here as telling the folks at People that when asked about what Star Wars fans can expect with the latest addition to the cinematic universe. He says, the first word that comes to my mind when describing the series is joyful. Now, that is in contrast to the Acolyte in a lot of ways, which kind of was a little dark, sort of didn't have a lot of joy to it. So this might be a nice pick-me-up from where Acolyte left us in terms of tone and mood. He also said that seeing children in the Star Wars environment is thrilling and very, very unique. It's a fun place to be, the universe of Star Wars, and there are great references to old films and recent episodes and series. There's a lot of originality, and I hope that will bring the feeling of fun to those who watch it.
When Jude says it's great seeing children in Star Wars, only one word pops into my mind. Yippee!
Yeah. We have
Ring any bells?
Yep. Yippee! And then there's that terrible high five that doesn't quite happen.
Oh, yeah. Kitster and Wald.
Kitster
I know. And those two guys rehearsed that so much. And when the big day came, the Bunta Eve, and all the cameras were pointing at them, they choked. Those two little bastards.
It's really hard to blame Warwick Davis because he probably can't see out of the damn mask. I got to lay all the fault there at Kitster.
No way. Kitster's not taking the fall for this. Kitster's there. He's there. He's got it going. And then, woof, swing and a miss from Wald. No way.
Why'd they make Wald? Why'd they make poor Wald do the swing for the high five when he's the one that's obstructed with the mask?
As George Lucas says, it's all like a rhyme. It all rhymes. What you have to understand is that there was a deleted scene from the original Star Wars where Greedo high-fived Walrus Man. And George's like, yeah, I could never really pull it off. I'm really bummed. I never was able to do it. Now I get a second chance. And then he tried again, and it still just didn't work. He's like, well, it rained in Tunisia for the first one, and it rained at the Greedos can't high five for shit.
It's a good sign. He took it as a good sign. The first one was a big hit with all those mistakes and problems. Now this one will be a big hit. All right, we got a couple more photos here we can look at. Again, these are all courtesy of people. Let's see. Now this looks like the Mystery Inc. gang to me, like, hey, they've got flashlights.
I'm not familiar with the Mystery Inc. gang.
Scooby-Doo. Fred, Daphne, Velma.
Oh, Mystery Inc.
Mystery Inc.
I get
Sorry,
it. I get it. Mystery Incorporated. Okay, all right, I get it.
Now, there's another character in here that's revealed, SM-33. This is a droid that is voiced by Nick Frost. And
is it sexy? That's all I need to know.
Is
this
it
a sexy droid? I hope not, with all the children there. It's not being sexy.
Nick Frost, the actor, was asked about his character. And he says he's like a rusty, old, cranky droid that sort of reluctantly helps the kids along the way. And he says that it's very fun and absolutely perfect. I'm sorry. I'm attributing this to Nick Frost, the actor. This is the creator. I think this is
John Watts.
This is either John Watts or Christopher Ford in this particular quote.
Right.
Describing the character that's played by Nick Frost. He's a rusty, old, cranky droid, sort of reluctantly helps the kids along the way, noting how fun and absolutely perfect Frost's contributions are. He says the other thing about him is that he's the first mate of a mysterious ship. So, mysterious ship. This looks to me, Jim, like the kids have just ended up on the mysterious ship. Maybe it is lost in space. The droid has been asleep or out of battery power for a long time, and they're just kind of coming upon him. This looks like the Goonies gang finding One-Eyed Willie, the skeleton of One-Eyed Willie on the pirate ship.
I think their encounter with this old ancient droid on board this ship is the event that really kicks the whole story into gear. I think they're just out on their bikes exploring their planet. They come across this ship that they've never seen before. Maybe it's a downed ship. Maybe it's been there forever. Who knows? But they get on board and they're exploring and they find this thing and they power it up. And somehow by powering it up, it forces the ship to launch into orbit and then blast into hyperspace, sending them into parts unknown. And they end up in some weird, mysterious place where they encounter Jude Law, who's hiding because the Empire, Order 66, all that stuff comes into play. Or Jude could have been a former student of Luke's or something. I don't know how to make it all tie in. I don't know.
Do we know when exactly this takes place in the timeline? Is this OT era or?
No.
This is
Mandalorian era.
Oh, this is Mandalorian era. Okay.
Yeah, so
this is post-Empire.
Post-Empire. So, yeah, maybe Jude was a Jedi in exile. He was just never found, luckily. Or maybe Jude's on this ship or something. It's like sleeping in the cabin or something.
Maybe he's in the brig. Like maybe he's a prisoner on this thing.
Oh, yeah, okay. And they free him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it, but I can't really make out any distinct features of this old droid based on the photo we're looking at. It's very poorly lit. It looks unlike anything we've seen in Star Wars.
It's sort of a skeletal look, in the head, and there's those two little where the under. Sort of where the jaw is, almost reminds me of the bottom of Vader's mask, those little tusks that come out.
Or a stormtrooper.
Yeah, or the trooper, yeah, right.
And it appears a bunch of wires are connected to it. And so that's why I think this thing might be hardwired into the ship itself. And when they activate it, the ship just immediately launches into hyperspace, and the droid can't help the kids. And
yeah, he says that
Nick Frost, of course, was that collaborator of Simon Pegg's, and they did that movie called Spaced. They actually discussed Star Wars. And Simon Pegg and Nick Frost did that clip where Pegg is 3PO and Frost is R2.
Oh, that's that guy. Remember that? I do remember that.
How did we get into this mess? We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life. Bloop, 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 bloop. What? Bloop, 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 bloop. Is that what you're gonna? Is that how you're gonna do it? Blop, bloop, blab, blob.
That's how he does it, isn't it?
Couple other things to share here. They're called hover bikes. I don't think I call them hydro bikes, but yeah, the hover bikes. It says they're very integral to the storytelling of childhood adventure, not only for the audience tuning in, but also for the actors involved. It's obviously a big nostalgia pull for a lot of us. And they talk about a lot of Easter eggs being in this series. It says if you look carefully, we've got some Star Wars tech that dates right back, I believe, to the original film.
As it should. I mean, this is Star Wars.
Right.
You should see familiar tech and things like start patting yourself on the back because there's a transporter in the new Star Trek show. We expect that to be there.
I hope so.
Jeez.
Says it's one of the joys, I think, of the universe for those who were there or who know these little details, always hidden away, Easter eggs people can find and link up. And finally, and this is a big question for a lot of people when they see a new Star Wars series coming on, that's the cost of entry. According to Watts, he says, you don't have to know everything about Star Wars to enjoy the show. You can come into it completely fresh and enjoy the story. But if you do happen to be a Star Wars super fan, there's a lot for you. As we've been promising for a while since the ACOLYTE started, we were going to get Kyle Newman's take, and let's do it right now. I don't know anybody that needs to stop in the cantina right now more than Kyle Newman, and we're certainly anxious to hear from him, so let's do it.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess. You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Hello, Kyle. Welcome back to the show.
What's up? It's good to be here. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for taking some time out from your family vacation.
Of course. Well, you guys are family, so
Oh, that's so nice.
Let's continue the family vacation here. No, this is good. It's essential. I was explaining that I had to come on. I was like, I can't miss this.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to get away to go do a Star Wars podcast when you're on vacation. Even I had to make some excuses a couple weeks ago, and I was on vacation. But in this case, this is sort of like evening the score a little bit because FJ's too up on you when it comes to ACOLYTE breakdowns on Rebel Force Radio. And Kyle, everyone that's been listening to the after shows and the weekly podcast knows that we've got this Jedi Council text thread that is just it's constant activity. Now we can't let people know. We can't read these texts. These are just private with us. But maybe you can give people a taste of what's been on your mind these last 8-9 weeks since the ACOLYTE has premiered and wrapped up.
Yeah, it's fair we let you do that because FJ was kind of putting words in your mouth a little bit too. So I wanted to make sure Kyle did get his day in the spotlight to actually put those words in his own mouth.
Well, it started with, FJ came on and did some Profit Loser, and he had some takes early on, and my take on the show evolved, of course, just like I think everybody's did. And then, FJ came on, did the wrap up, and even I think one of his quotes was, he's like, there was one good episode out of 8. I think that he literally said that, but it was still a good show. So I don't know how one good episode equates to a good show.
I'd like to have had FJ as a school teacher. If I get 1 out of 8 right, I get a passing grade.
I don't think he said it was just one good show, but
he did a cumulative, and I was like, oh, there he is. I caught him. He said there's one good episode. He said it. I was like, he said it. He admitted it. So here's the deal. I wanted to like the show. I really did. I know a lot of people that worked on the show. People worked their asses off on this show. It's not just a show. It's a hard point for Star Wars right now. We're in a really, really tricky place because we've taken something that was the modern myth. We've taken something that every time you saw Star Wars, it was the gold standard. It was magic. It was our mythology. It was our religion. And now we're getting it weekly. It's just like an Uber Eats. It drops it off. And you know what? It's made it mundane. And it's not just this show. What we have effectively seen right now is the reduction of Star Wars from the pinnacle of entertainment to a ordinary weekly show. And it's just been reduced to the ordinary. And that's the greatest crime of the show.
Is that inevitable? Because is it a question of volume, though, Kyle? Because is that inevitable when you have that much? We have a surplus, you might say, of Star Wars.
Yeah, and that's a choice. I mean, you have a company, and let's just talk about on a business level. They invested billions of dollars in this to acquire it and billions more to create content for it. And their goal with that was the proliferation of Star Wars globally in all their theme parks, on all their Disney Pluses and all their different territories. And they needed to be evangelical about Star Wars. But by being that way, they've also taken the magic out of it. And I hate to say that, but it became ordinary. I found myself more compelled to watch, House of the Dragon or Shogun than episodes of recent Star Wars. Now that's one thing. That's just the reduction of Star Wars from the upper echelon of entertainment, from my religion, to just here's some more stuff, eat it, here's your TV dinner. And that could be helped, though. All of this could be helped by, you manage how much content you put out. But the content you do put out has to be absolutely amazing. And I'm not going to sit around and pretend that this was amazing. This was subpar on most levels. First and foremost, storytelling.
Okay, and where in the storytelling or the execution of the story did the ACOLYTE fail you? Like, where specifically?
This show lacked a really strong and clear point of view. I wanted to know whose show it was. I wanted to get inside them. I wanted to feel what they were feeling. And I think when you don't have a clear POV, it results in a strong lack of empathy. I don't have empathy for any of these people. They become things I'm looking at. I'm not in their soul rooting for them. Like Luke wanders out, kicks dust. He wanders out to the outskirts of the homestead and he stares off into Twin Sunset. And I think everybody can identify. They feel it, right? You feel it. It visually means something and it resonates. And everyone can go, oh my God, I know what that feeling was like when you just want to be anywhere else but where you are and you yearn for more. Like those moments are gone. I don't see them. I don't feel them. And the power of storytelling, like I said, is empathy. And what that means is you can identify with someone that's nothing like you, that looks nothing like you. You get in their shoes, you get in their head, you've experienced the way they see the world. That's good storytelling, whether it's a book or a show or a movie. That didn't happen.
Well,
that's the power of storytelling.
Why do you think that it didn't happen here? Well, I guess you really can't answer that for everybody, but why did it not happen for you in this particular series?
I studied storytelling. I studied filmmaking. I studied the classics. I studied the art of this stuff. I can answer to it to a degree. And the degree is it's not present in the script. It's not there. These things have to be built into it. If you build a house and you forgot to put the foundation, the house might look good. But after a little bit of time, you're going to realize it's sinking. And this house doesn't have this. It doesn't have the proper plumbing. This doesn't flow to this anymore. You have to, it's like architecture. It's like anything. There's a process to it. Engineering, storytelling, as much as it's an art, there is a structure to it. It started back in ancient Greece. They started analyzing the structure of story, and it's evolved, to where it is now. And not much is different. And those are the pillars of storytelling. And on that level, there are things that are missing. It's a clear point of view. Whose story is it? What do they want? What makes them tick? Who's the villain? The villain is an idea? Is the Jedi? That the Jedi are bad? And if that's going to be your idea, then what you have to do is put the Jedi in a situation, a conundrum, where they're faced with their morality, their ethics are challenged. They go, this is what I should do. But my God, I can't. Look at the situation I'm put in. You know what I mean? It's like if someone said, I would never kill someone, but my God, someone's about to hurt my child. Would I save my child's life by hurting this person? You put them in a moral conundrum, and you test their morality.
Well, some might say, but some might say that that's what. Some might say that's what they did here, though, right? Wouldn't some people say, well,
they can say whatever they want, Jason, but it's not in the script. We've intellectualized. We can talk about it all we want.
Well, that's where things really broke down for me. Was that I thought that we were having to do on the after show and through our analysis a lot of heavy lifting for what was not there in the script. It was kind of fun. It was sort of a creative exercise, but at the end of the day, it fell a little short than just analyzing what we were seeing. I felt like
there were 3-hour after shows. You guys were doing 3-hour after shows. It was philosophy. You guys were doing speculation, but you were also doing a lot of heavy lifting. And I'm on the outside and I'm watching talk about it, and I watch you guys talk about it, and there was a lot of conjecture.
Yes.
God, Basil's getting so much airtime,
Go ahead, Swank. Do the sniff.
Point of view. It's just this. Ocean May point of view. We talked about episode 3, Brendok. And does it need to be established that is someone's point of view? And it does. It really does. Because when you empathize with someone and you put them there and you trigger them, sense memory, something happens in the present that brings them there. It frames it and it gives you context and potency. You look at a movie like Citizen Kane, right? You got this mystery of Rosebud. You don't know what it is. He had a sled at the beginning and it turns out that was the sled and there's some circularity to it. In this, she could have been on the trail for her sister, right? And she picks up a weird book from her planet, something in a rush that was left behind, right? And we don't know what that means. It's a weird triangle book. And suddenly it brings us back to Brendok, like sense memory. And we get to this whole episode and it culminates with her sister burning a book just like it. And that you're like, oh my God, that's why we got this. It was like she hadn't thought about that, or she suppressed this memory. And this was her version, her image, her visage of this as it stuck with her. And I know the word Rashomon was thrown around a lot. The classic Kurosawa film, one of the greatest films, of its era and one of the greatest films of all time. It's often misconstrued as to what that really means. And in here, they're like, we're just going to omit information. We're going to omit information. We're going to give it to you later. Whereas Rashomon, what it is it prevents the philosophies of 4 different people, their experiences, and puts them against each other. And then you see there's these different ways of looking at one truth. And maybe people have an individual truth. And I was hoping that this episode, they said this show was a murder mystery. They said it was from the Sith's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to empathize with the Sith. And all they did, rather than showing me, look, you take Darth Equinox, Darth Jacuzzi, whatever you want to call him. He's a good actor. It's not great. It's not as good as Kylo Ren, who's conflicted inside, right? You look at that guy and you look at this, and what was he challenged by? What was he feeling? What was going on? Like Kylo Ren, even the Emperor, even Darth Vader, they are in constant conflict. There is fear. There is fear. And fear is at the core of the dark side. It's a tenet of it. I felt no fear in this man. He was calm. He was like, come with me if you want. It's chill. It's cool. Like, it was like, whoa. Kylo Ren was disturbed. And he was pitching it to Rey. He was trying anything. You know what I mean? There was a loneliness to it. And
yeah.
That was not present.
There was like a desperation, a pleading, like Kylo Ren needed Rey, because there was a loneliness, there was a pleading, there was a needing.
He's like, give it to me. It belongs to me. This thing belongs to me. It was like, he was compelled. It was compulsion. This guy was, and so you have this character who says, I've been religiously persecuted. I'm alienated. I don't feel like I can be who I want to be and practice my religion. Right? He tells us this. Did I feel that? Did I experience that? Did I see him be hunted down? Did I see him not be allowed to practice his religion? It was all spoken to me. I was told. Did I see a scene where the Jedi maybe encountered him and tried to apprehend him? And he's like, whoa. I'm just trying to do my thing. And these people, look what they did. And now I've got revenge, or now I need to flex my muscles and do my thing. All they gave us was the idea of what was a good show. This was a great concept for a show. It could have been a great show. It probably would be a better book because you can get into people's heads better in books, especially with two characters and bouncing between them and really seeing two different perspectives of a single incident. And now when you factor in the Jedi, maybe 4, 5, 6 different perspectives of the incident on Brendok. But what they didn't do was shade it and nuance it. They just said, well, the Jedi are bad. So let's start out and just say the Jedi are bad in this world. So they're bad. They didn't say the Jedi are presented with this ethical conundrum. They're just they're bad. This woman's like, let's just lie and write a fake report. And this guy's like, I'm homesick. I want to go home. Meanwhile, I'm a Jedi freaking knight and I'm complaining about my obligation. It was just like, let's just write bad characters. I will say hands down, these are the lamest Jedi ever shat into Star Wars content. This is the lamest.
Yeah.
I can't even think
of worse. That was mentioned
on
the after shows.
It was awful. I mean, this is bad. So if you want to make it interesting, write great Jedi and then have them make mistakes. Then have them expose their underbelly. Then have that senator come in and say, you know what's going to happen when they can't control their emotions. But write great Jedi. Write the best version of each character. Even if it's your villain, you want to empathize with what they want, right? They always say the great villains, you empathize with what they want. If the Jedi are the villains in this, they did a really bad job of presenting what the Jedi want. They just were pawns to be moved around.
I want to ask
there was no one. There was nothing.
Sorry, Kyle. I want to ask you what you think of the character of Jedi Master Saul. Saul, me and Jason have taken some heat, I've noticed online, especially in the YouTube comments, that we are very inconsistent with what we call this cat. I think it's Master Soul?
Saul, not Saul.
Mr. Soul, which was a great song from Neil Young.
It's not better called Saul.
How do you feel about the way that character was portrayed?
Well, it's interesting. I loved the character at first. I thought he started as a great character. I really liked the first 2 episodes. They really lost me at episode 3. I thought execution on that episode was really not up to the standards of Star Wars across the board.
Where did it fall short? Where did it fall short for you?
Story, then script, then execution, direction. It didn't come together. It was loose at points. Jason, you brought this up with your after shows. Like the young girls were like upstaging with some of the hemiest like wrestling. Yeah. The logic behind stuff just didn't add up. I think I wrote in one of your threads, like on Rebel Force Radio, what I thought should happen. And here's what I thought. You want to understand why the Jedi came to this planet. Later, like I had a theory around episode 3, 4. And I thought, okay, everybody here that we've seen, they've killed themselves or they've gone crazy. Our Talnaka is drawing these patterns on the walls. Indara, you don't know why she's off where she is. And Saul maybe hadn't dealt with what he had to deal with yet, or he dealt with it and became the Sith. I thought it would be interesting if he was the villain because he actually became a villain. Now, what they did here was they took Saul, who was one of the better characters in the show. He became a three-dimensional character that evolved into a plot device. He lost his humanity, and with it his three-dimensionality. And the way they handled his death, I thought was absolutely deplorable. The messaging for me is weird. You have a character who says, he's about to say, I love you, and they smother it out so he can't even say that. And it felt more like an anger towards, I don't know what, but not towards the character himself. Because what were his crimes? And what they didn't do was explain and express clearly what these characters' crimes were. You have a guy that in Torben who just said, you know, I want to go home.
Right, and he was possessed by these witches. He wasn't even really acting under his own free will. So how could he even
probably got in his head and gave him the worst hallucinogenic experience of his life. They wrecked this guy's mind, right? They wrecked him. Like he didn't know what hit him.
Right.
And yet he's a villain.
Yes.
Like, so he then goes and he sits there in stasis and he becomes this impenetrable Jedi Master. He somehow develops gray hair and a beard in 5 years. It looked like the worst cosplay ever. I hate being this harsh on it, but that was some really poor makeup and stuff.
Oh, it was brutal.
And so then he drinks poison. So they basically endorsing suicide here. They're saying this guy was so bad, commit suicide, you loser.
And then you've got Saul, who doesn't commit suicide, but he's telling his murderer that it's okay as she's murdering him.
But really, they never gave Saul the opportunity to continue the Saul thought, to express his point of view. Saul never said, I thought I was doing what's best for you. She turned into a monster, was absorbing your sister. They had mind wiped my buddy. Like, they took over the mind of a Wookiee. Did he express any of this? Like, to her? Like, there was, in a good story, you give the opportunity for the character to express themselves, but still be shut down. It's like debate. You know, in debate, you give everybody their moment to give their best argument. And then the other one is the most profound and powerful, and it hits you in the gut. And then you go, oh, God, okay. They just omitted details.
In storytelling, things need to be earned.
They intellectualized. They said, we want the story to go this way. And I understand that trajectory. They said, we want to tell a story where the Jedi are failing. And we're setting up the infrastructure of them, the soul of them. It's rotting away. So by the time Anakin comes, it makes sense. You know, and they're trying to do this connective tissue to pass this baton. But what they didn't do was write great Jedi. And if Jedi are the villain, you got to write a great villain. And they didn't do that. They didn't really get in their heads. They just presented a loose idea of what a Jedi was and said, we're going to throw them all into the bus. And what they did was present some of the worst Jedi I've ever seen. Like Vernestra is a shadow of who she is in the High Republic books.
Have you been reading the High Republic books?
I have. Yeah, I have read and listened to the audiobooks. You know, there's a certain charisma to that character. She's one of the youngest, I think the youngest Jedi Master. And who they presented here, this character felt like a weird facsimile. It was not them. It just was really, really strange. There was just, I couldn't get, I couldn't vibe with it. I couldn't connect with it. It was really an awful character.
And I certainly don't, it's not my intention to manipulate the conversation at all, but I do recall after the first 2 episodes aired, us chatting, and there was some positivity. Like there was thought that maybe the bones of this story, or sort of more of the general idea of what they are trying to do was pretty interesting. What for you, Kyle? Maybe the execution was poor, but what of the setup, what of the premise, what of the idea did you think, had legs and had potential, if handled maybe even differently?
Well, the basic conceit itself. I mean, just there was an incident. Some Jedi may not have made the best choice. Mm-hmm. There were fallout and ramifications from that, and those ramifications came back to haunt them in the form of a person that they didn't realize. It was a casualty that was still alive. That was this girl, and this girl wants retribution. It's a really compelling story.
It is,
and the Jedi have to finally face some of these things in a tone. I thought it would have been interesting if, in that process, everyone dealt with it a different way, like suicide, self-isolation. Kalanaga went crazy, and maybe Saul like started to go, what did I witness at this place? This is what I was thinking about episode 4. I was like, this would be really cool if this Saul became our villain, right? What did I witness here? And he starts dabbling. He looks into it and he realizes this taboo subject of the dark side, the Sith, which they haven't talked about in maybe 900 years. Like, they don't really teach it. He still got pulled in, right? And his way of processing this event that he saw, this anomaly, this Force anomaly, there's virgins. If this was the virgins, not that it was the 2 girls, but whatever these Sith or these witches did, changed all these people. And Saul went down a different path. And Saul became the mentor of the girl. He became the mentor of this girl. The only one he knew. He's the only one who knew that she was left alive on this planet. If we're talking about May.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes back and he gets her and he trains her. And they even say things in the show like, "Oh, it's clearly she was trained by a Jedi." You know,
yeah,
like
they lay this. They lay this groundwork in some of these breadcrumbs that really could have gone in some interesting places, but they just didn't quite. They just didn't quite go there. And the conceit, you talk about the conceit here of them saving potentially some of the best stuff for a second season on an untested story and an untested set of creatives. I think that was a huge problem. Like Jimmy was just saying, earn things. Well, earn your second season.
Right. And if you want to do things the way George Lucas did, he went for broke in that original 1977 film. He took everything and dumped it into it. Yes, there were compelling components of backstory that he knew there was potential in, but he was only focused on taking everything he researched, everything he studied, everything he developed, and dumping it all 110% into that original 1977 film.
I think they did. I think for them, these storytellers put everything they could into this. I don't think they were holding back.
How do you sideline Darth Plagueis? How do you sideline Yoda? This is stuff that should be emerging 4th episode in an 8-episode season.
I agree with you, but I don't think that was ever part of their plans. For them, I'm saying. Obviously, different storyteller maybe would have done something different. And I agree with you. You have to not put 110%. You put 120%. Great stories, the things that survive the test of time, especially in such a congested marketplace where your eyes can go a million different directions to streaming services, but it can go to TikTok, it can go to YouTube, it can go to whatever, it can go to video games. Content used to be king, right? It used to be. It's not. What's king is the time that you have. You have the time. You can choose to watch anything. And right now, I think the reality is people just aren't choosing to watch Star Wars. Back in 1983, 1980, that was it. 1999, there was nothing else. It dominated everything. If you see one movie this summer, go see Star Wars. But if you see 2, go see Austin Powers. You know what I mean? Like, it was, that was it, guys.
Great tag. That's right. The prequels. But I mean, that's because the Phantom Menace received the most wide window of debut for almost any other film up to that era. Disney Plus, I believe, has a very small window where there aren't that many people looking into it.
But you're talking globally. I mean, you're talking domestic, right? Internationally, Disney Plus Disney has hundreds of millions of people. Right? We're talking just in the U.S. We have
hundreds of millions. Do
probably.
they?
Close to over 100
of millions
globally. I think between Hulu and their different platforms, when they put out a show like Shogun, which is Hulu, I saw ads when I was in Europe, and it's on Disney. They just have Disney. I don't know how their portals work. They have a lot of eyeballs, and you can show Star Wars. Every country in the world that's getting streaming is getting some form of Disney, and they have access to the ACOLYTE. They have access to everything. If you want people to watch your stuff, it has to be great.
153 million. Just so we're clear. 153 million global.
150. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
they have
Kyle's an industry guy. He knows these statistics.
Right.
But that actually is down from an all-time high of 164 million. So they're down 11 million.
The 200-something million minutes streamed, okay? Andor was in it petered out. It tapered out at like 400-something million minutes or whatever it was. And then it boosted again when the show was ending because of word of mouth.
Yeah.
ACOLYTE was dipping below 200. ACOLYTE was getting half of what Andor is getting, and Andor was considered problematic. So you can spin it however you want about you don't like that it's probably men online shitting on the show. I've read a lot of tweets. It's men and women. There's a lot of people who don't like it for various reasons. A lot of them are disgusting reasons, awful reasons, racist, terrible reasons. I don't want to hear those people's thoughts. They suck. Let's ignore them. Forget them.
They carry no water.
I also don't want to hear the people's thoughts who are, you're racist if you don't like this show. They can go away too. They're awful because they're probably deep down inside awful people too. Those people are sad and scared. And there's a lot of people that were like, this is High Republic. I like these books. I have to like this show. They liked this show before they watched it. Guys, I'm sorry. There are these people.
I just want to say what's funny is a guy that Mac and I hear from time to time, Eastside Dave. I got to say, he had a great line where Eastside Dave was saying, you know what, I was 7-8 years old when I saw the Ewok movies on TV. And even then, as a kid, I knew they were crap. He goes, but nobody told me that I wasn't a real fan or a true fan because I didn't like Caravan of Courage. And this whole idea that if you don't like something, oh, you're not a real Star Wars fan. Screw you. Been a fan since the day I was born, practically. Tell me I'm not a fan.
I agree with you. And I think it's those type of conversations, that rhetoric, that extreme hyperbole is dangerous. And they're on both sides. So let's just take them away. Those people are crazy on both sides. The people that are out there telling you that this show, boycott it because it has this type of main character and this type of showrunner made it, they ignore them. Just talk about story and content. Is this resonating with people? Are there people that wanted to like it? I wanted to like it. I really wanted to like it. I thought that the first two episodes were promising, had a wonderful score. I thought it harkened back to some classic stuff. It wasn't as thematic. It wasn't as dynamic. But I felt like echoes of things that I really liked. And it did enough. It didn't complicate or convolute, and it complemented well. Design, there's wonderful design work. I know you guys talked about like the interiors of the Jedi ship. Awesome. Some of the stuff at the Jedi Temple was subpar. I thought, Vernestra's office looked like a Foot Locker showroom. Some of it was just great.
Foot Locker.
These environments should reflect the character. When you're designing a movie, when you're working with your production design, when you're working with your art directors, you want to talk about character. You want to talk about colors that speak to the character. You want to talk about shapes. You want to talk about environments, spaces, how you want that character to be situated within that space, how you want that space to be a reflection of the character, how you want that space to make a character feel when another character comes into that space. How you photograph a movie is all about space, relationships, sizes, where a character is in the frame, which character is bigger in the frame, where characters, are they sharing the frame? Are we spending more time on one? It is all these things, choices you make as a director. There's all these choices you make as a showrunner. Some of those choices, and this are really good. Star Wars always gets really, really talented, smart people. And I thought, overall, it was a beautiful looking show. It was shot well. For the most part, wardrobe was great. It's the things to me that are just like, why are there 9 Jedi walking into a jungle and they need a little guy to sniff it out when they're all essentially force sensing their way to a friend of theirs? And then why are we spending 4 episodes with this little weird rodent creature who then pulls the cord on something in episode 8 nonsensically? Why am I with characters that don't feel like Jedis? At one point they're like, she's giving a speech in episode 8. She's like, all right, everybody, this is the plan. And then everybody they walk off in different directions like extras. It was like, do another take. That was terrible. What happened there? They just marched off like robots. It didn't make sense.
There were so many, so many weird inconsistencies that distracted me. There were those character inconsistencies, and we know. Here's the deal. We've been watching this stuff for almost 50 years. We know how the lightsabers work. We know how the Force works. We know how these things operate within the galaxy far, far away. So if you're going to make a change, if you're going to do something different, make it big, make it bold. Don't make it look like it was an accident. And a lot of this stuff just looked like it was uninformed or misinformed and accidental. I also wanted to ask you, Kyle, if you thought the running time, because this came up a lot on our after shows, if you thought the running times really affected the ability to tell this story coherently.
Absolutely. Yes. It's concerning when you watch a show like House of Dragon with a comparable budget, maybe even smaller, and the scale of what they're pulling off, and they're 50-minute episodes, every minute is expensive in film. You want to make sure your script is as tight as possible. You don't want to shoot a third of a day on a scene that's probably not going to make it. You got to figure this stuff out in advance. The fact that there were some episodes that were like 26 minutes plus credits, I was like, what is this, Mr. Belvedere? Like, where's the meat on this episode? What is happening here?
Sitcom
there's
length.
So much more to explore. There's so much more to explore, and you've got these great characters.
Wow.
Get to the core of what makes them tick. Test them, push them, probe them.
Here's the thing.
Show me.
Okay, so when
Don't tell me. There's so much telling. You have to get to these shows. I'm sorry, you got to get to the shows, and you got to say, all right, this is the season. Okay, now we've mapped it out. Now, how do we make this the best season you have ever fucking seen in your life? How do you make it the best thing you've ever seen in your life? And you push every single person on your team to the max to bring it. This is Star Wars, dude. You're not going to bed. Come on. Go. What are you doing? This has got to be the best show ever. You need to blow people away. And right now, I feel like people are just doing their punch cards. We've made Star Wars
They're
ordinary.
punching in.
Star Wars is ordinary,
It's a 9
guys.
to 5
it's
gig.
Just like any show. It's just like Supernatural or any other show. It's just there.
Do you feel that seeing Star Wars on TV in a weekly format does something to diminish it and make it feel maybe
I don't think that's
mundane?
The thing. It could be part of it, right? But if we're getting 1 or 2 shows a year, that's not too much. It has to be good. It can't be worse than the other shows on TV. A lot of this show felt like an ABC show from the early 2000s. The casting,
CW.
Performance, CW-ish. And sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
You look at a show like House of Dragon, and they shoot it cinematically. George Lucas knew how to shoot stuff. These guys knew how to shoot things. They would bring you into the environment, in a way that would establish it, and it felt new and different. And then they would get into these. The way they would cover people wasn't just like floating heads. You know what I mean? He covered it in a way that was not so objective, not so subjective. It was objective, and you step back and it became mythic. There's a way you shoot something, and there's an ordinary to this. Across the board, it just felt like television. It didn't feel like Star Wars, And it has all these little boxes checked. It should feel like Star Wars. It should smell like Star Wars. It should taste like Star Wars. But when I got to the end of these 8 episodes, it felt like, the Burger King of meals. It wasn't like, I went to the mall and this was Sbarro pizza. It wasn't Star Wars pizza. It was like, give me the best.
Yeah, like
because
that meme about this is the wish. This is the wish version of whatever. Or when we were kids, it was like this is the you had like the real cereal, and then you had the generic cereal at the bottom of the aisle. There is an aspect of that.
Star Wars. Look, and I go on Rebel Force. I read your forums. I read all the people, all the posts. There's a lot of people like, it was fine. It was fine. It was great. I'm glad you think it's fine, guy in Ohio or wherever you are. But do you just want Star Wars to be fine, guy in Ohio?
Yeah.
No. Are you here at Rebel Force Radio? Are you a Star Wars fan? Do you want your franchise to be the number one? Do you want Star Wars to be awesome? Or do you just want it to be fine? Are we supposed to roll over and go, it's fine? Look, the Rolling Stones, Steel Wheels. Was that a great album?
I enjoyed it.
But diehards maybe liked it. No, it's not Beggar's Banquet. It's not great. It's not the best. Let's bring Star Wars back to the best. We're settling for less than we should. And I don't like that. I don't want to rationalize and go, look, I like all Star Wars. I'm going to watch everything they put out. I'm going to probably watch it twice. I'm going to watch Vision Season 2. That was rough. That wasn't great. You know what? Bad Batch Season 3, I know everyone loved it. I didn't think it was wonderful. I thought I lost Hunter as a main character. I thought they should have sat down and said, who are main characters in this show? And are we servicing them? And then you do another draft to make sure. In this show, they have Osha and May. And I did not know what was going on in terms of who was the main character. They even did a Parent Trap. You know what happened after my Parent Trap episode? Disney Plus recommended I watch Once Upon a Time, whatever that show was. And like, maybe you also like, I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah. Oh, if you like this. Yeah, right.
Like, it was tonally off.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Can I
Down
just
to,
say, when I'm trying to
popcorn.
watch the credits, I'm sick of Disney Plus suggesting stuff to me and then shrinking the credit screen down into like a 16th of the entire space of my screen. Why do they
all
do that?
That's not just Disney.
What's
that's
up with
everybody.
streaming
Because they're-
series? When you hit pause, everything goes like there's a darkness over the entire screen. It's like, wait a second. I was hitting pause because I wanted to look around in this frame, but they make it all dark.
They don't want you to switch to another streamer. They make it small and they give you the button to click to the next.
They don't want you to take screen captures. They make it really hard to do the kinds of things that we're trying to do, which is, in a lot of ways evangelize the brand because it's something that we love, but also do some analysis and reviews and all of that. And they make it really challenging.
Take us for granted as fans. And I feel like if they keep putting stuff out and it's not up to snuff, and we keep saying that's fine as fans, and we keep doing the hard work and the heavy lifting and filling in the gaps of inadequate storytelling and screenwriting, and we are forced to do that work, the work that the people who came before these people, they're standing on the shoulders of a giant. George did the work. George surrounded himself with great people, and they didn't go make a movie until that script was awesome. That's what they did. That's how you do it.
You made a comment.
George Lucas, he came from an era of exceptionally great young filmmakers. He was part of a fraternity of some of the greatest that Hollywood has ever seen. And now I think we are just simply breathing in the fumes of that.
Yes.
That's all that's happening now. Because all of these greats have
we're coasting.
with the exception of a few, have moved on. And now we're left with Hollywood, the next generation. And we're just breathing in the fumes of greatness now. I don't think greatness can be achieved until the next generation of young maverick rebel filmmakers rises up. How is that ever going to happen again?
It's not. The landscape would really have to change. Why the opportunities arose for filmmakers like George Lucas and Milius and Francis Ford Coppola and Spielberg was because there was a real crisis going on in the business. Maybe it'll happen again, but there's a real crisis happening in the country, politically, socioeconomically.
Sounds familiar.
And also within the film industry. And a movie like Easy Rider came out, shocked the system, and then these guys were older, they didn't know what to do, so they started saying, just give them money, let them do stuff. And they weren't shooting on the lot; they were shooting on location. And there were people actually being trained in filmmaking at this point. People going to college for it. Guys like George going to USC. Guys like Milius. Where you didn't have that before. These guys were trained in the system. They were studio men. There was a culture conflict.
It's lightning in a bottle. Do you think Star Wars should only be a film property and leave the weekly storytelling to animation?
No. I love Star Wars. I think Star Wars could be so many great things. I love Star Wars animation. I love Star Wars movies. I love Star Wars shows. I liked a lot of this show. I also am a fan, and I'm allowed to be particular and hard on it. I'm not just going to give any show a pass. I was hard on Ahsoka. I was hard on Andor, season 3 especially. They should have canceled it probably after that one. It was
Mandalorian, I think you mean.
Mandalorian. That's what I mean. Man, it was not a great show. I mean, it lost a lot. It's like, whoa, where are we? What's happening here? I think there has been some real misses. I liked half of Kenobi. But I still, when I see a vintage figure on the shelf, I'm like, I love it. I want it. I still want an OSHA action figure. I like all this stuff. I just feel like, was that the best it could have been? And the answer is no. It could have been better. And especially when you're spending $180 million. And you're getting 26 minute episodes, something's up. And I don't know what, it's not saying it's just a show. I think several shows have contributed in making Star Wars a completely, ordinary, run-of-the-mill, disposable. Yeah. It's just like you eat your Jack in the Box and it's over. Like, what's next? And does it deserve the attention that we used to give Star Wars as fans? Like, Star Wars became something big. It was mythic, it was the monomyth it's probably the greatest, story of the past, greatest hero's journey of the past couple hundred years, period. Like Luke's arc, boom, done. That's it. Name something better. 3 films, none. You can't. Sorry, go away. It's like that simple.
Yeah. No,
There's
it
nothing.
certainly is
Sorry.
cornered. It certainly cornered the market for sure in modern myth making. It is because it does resonate to such a primal place, and we know that was not by accident at all. But I want to go back to something you said earlier that was very, very interesting. You were picking on the poor guy from Ohio. I hope that wasn't me, but you were saying, this guy means well. He jumps on a message board and goes, yeah, it was okay. And you said, no, don't accept mediocre. Don't accept okay. What has happened, in fandom to where either we're, perhaps afraid to really say how we're really feeling? Because I think sometimes people will couch their opinions a bit, because when you love your favorite sports team, you don't want to be, necessarily ragging on them, because you don't want people to call you, not a real fan or a fair weather fan or something like that. But there's also this idea of, and maybe I'm just making this up in my head, but there's almost like no, it's mine. I want to keep Star Wars small and all to myself. I don't want to share it. And I'm happy that I can just go on and talk to these 180 people every week, on this message board or whatever. Like, they don't want it to invade us, or they're afraid of it getting bigger. You got me really thinking about that when you said that complacency that can settle into fandom. How do we fix that?
Well, it's an individual thing. There isn't a blanket thing. I know we want to say it's fandom and it's a whole, and there is an organism of a fandom. Each thing is alive. It breathes, it moves. But what's really keeping it alive on a microcosmic level is the person. You have your own experience with it, and you have to make sense of it. You have to say, this is how I want to live with it. And I'm a big fan of Arsenal soccer team in England. They went through maybe 20 years of problems where they weren't financially run correctly. They built a stadium. It cost them $1 billion. It affected the team. Performances weren't there. You as a fan, I became their most critical person. I love them through and through. If I was to ever get a tattoo, the only thing I'd probably ever get a tattoo of is Arsenal in my life. You know what I mean? But I'm the hardest on them. But that's part of my fandom. I see some of the problems, and I don't know what's going on necessarily behind the scenes, just like with Lucasfilm and Star Wars. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know what trials and tribulations those storytellers faced. But when I kind of look at it and go, okay, do I see great value? Does this look like a $180 million show? No. I know how to spend money on a film set. It doesn't. Does this look like the best script it could be? No, it doesn't. So for me, I'm watching, I'm like, damn, this could have been better. Why? What? That didn't make sense. What is happening? That takes you out of it. When I'm watching Empire Strikes Back, am I sitting there going, well, why are they in the asteroid field? I don't know. And this John Williams music. You don't even think about it. You don't even think about it. You live it. You breathe it. You get hair. Your hair on the back of your neck is up, and you just have chills, and you're just like, well, I just experienced. That's great. We want that. Bring that back to Star Wars. Bring the magic back, and don't make it karaoke. You know what I mean? Karaoke?
Yeah.
Like it's cover band.
Yeah.
We're in the cover band. I was at some flea market, right? And they had the Beatles playing. I was like, these guys sound just like the Beatles. That guy looks just like Ringo. What a great Ringo ripoff. That's where we're at right now in Star Wars. We're in the Ringo cover band.
Do we measure though how great the new stuff is by how much it looks and sounds like Ringo, to use your analogy? Is that what's going on?
No. What we should be doing is, Star Wars is so rich and vibrant. We need new storytelling, new eras, new characters. And I applaud them for trying to go 100 years back. That's a brave thing to do. It's bold, right? They weren't regurgitating. They didn't lean on Yoda. They said, we're going to go do our own thing. I love that. That's a great starting place. But what they didn't do well was express the Jedi correctly. They just didn't come and present Jedi the way they should have been presented and put them in a moral situation to be questioned and to fail. It felt like it was all predetermined, and they were just pawns going through the motion as opposed to characters that were living and experiencing these failures. This guy takes a poison. He was like, I want to die. It didn't feel earned. I'm sorry, it wasn't earned. You can intellectualize it and say it worked for you, but search your soul. It's not.
Oh, no pun intended either.
It didn't work. You can sit and lie to me, but it didn't work.
I want to go back to your cover band statement, because what I see is not necessarily Lucasfilm taking the cover band and striving for authenticity. They take the cover band and they try to subvert what the real band had established for their entire careers. It's almost like taking your Beatles cover band and putting them out there, and it looks just like John, Paul, George, and Ringo, but they play nothing but Led Zeppelin. It's like, wait a second, they're
right.
not
We're
meant to be playing
now.
Led Zeppelin.
You're right. When they started, they were trying for the cover band, with what JJ was doing. They're trying to make it like beat for beat, planet for planet. They were like, Jakku was a straight rip of Tatooine, and it was all straight rips. This isn't Yavin, but
Starkiller Base, the new Death Star.
Yeah, they were doing that. All right, now we're in a place where you're right, where they're not. They're putting the wrong thing, the wrong Lego head on the wrong figure, and you're like, but that's cool, right? You're like, I don't know. Just what is that character? I don't know what that is. I want new storytelling. New. Go to a new era. Go fresh. And then don't subvert. Like, don't take the Jedi and then subvert them to make a point that is disingenuous. Don't just go to a new point in the timeline and tell something new. Don't have to have it be a meditation or a subversion on what's already there. You don't say George Lucas got it wrong. The Jedi were dicks all along. You know what I mean? That's not the point of what he was saying. That's not. The Jedi had the wool pulled over their eyes by a Sith master. They were looking for the Sith to come back in a form that didn't exist. The Sith had evolved. The Sith evolved to the point. I saw some journalist put something online, and he was talking in defense of the Acolyte. And he was saying, here's a scene from Attack of the Clones where there's 5 Jedi in a room and they didn't even know that it was Emperor Palpatine. Oh, wow, good on you, journalist guy. And everyone's like, this is a respected journalist. I was like, well, not in the Star Wars space, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. The magic and the brilliance of Palpatine was that he sat in a room with the Jedi and he didn't use the dark side. He didn't need to. He accumulated and ascended to his position of power by not even using the dark side. He did it politically. And the Jedi could not anticipate, and they didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't see the Sith in front of them because they weren't acting like Sith. It wasn't that he was using the dark side and they didn't sense him. He wasn't doing anything. And that's the brilliance of the rise of the Sith. So what's happening in this era isn't that. When they were trying to rationalize the Parent Trap episode where they swap masters, okay? A master can sense their student. These girls weren't trained to block who they were. They didn't have that ability. And so he would know. You can sense the life force of someone, where we radiate these auras, and these people can read them. And they interact with them on a level beyond the physical. That just felt like a really cheap and weird gimmick, the Parent Trap episode. I was like, whoa, you lost me here. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
That was the Beatles playing Kool in the Gang. That was what was going on in that episode.
They're cool ideas. A lot of cool ideas in the show. The execution is not there. Like, you sit for a second, you go, okay, well, how can we make this really work? Let's think about it. What's the best way to do this? What's the best, if we want to say that the Jedi made this mistake and failed these 2 girls, and these 2 girls are being failed by their own coven, and they were also then were subsequently failed by the Jedi. And then we're left with these 2 girls who really were failures of both systems. I mean, that's a healthier situation, because I didn't look at the witches as some altruistic, perfect organization. And I think we were supposed to get to the end of this and go, these girls were stripped of a great life with these witches.
Yeah, we were supposed to be feeling sympathy for the witches' coven. I think that's what the storytellers intended. I think that was their goal. And I just can't get on board with that.
They were using mind control. I'll tell you why.
Because
a Wookiee kill his friends. I don't sympathize with these people. Then they all
They're
died.
Motivated by fear. They're tapping into the dark side, motivated by fear, which is a key tenet of a dark sider. And in Star Wars, we're not supposed to root for the dark siders ever. We could say, wow, it sure is cool when Darth Maul does all those spinning moves, or Darth Vader mows down all those rebels at the end of Rogue One. We could get excited by that, but it's still, to me, it kind of puts a pit in my stomach, It's because of the evil power.
if they earned it, Jimmy, if it was earned, if I could empathize with them and the perspective, if I could empathize with the stranger's point of view, and I felt him being persecuted, and you showed me how that happened, and I could really empathize with May, and I didn't look at her as someone who locked the doors and set fire and tried to kill everyone, and if I could empathize with the witches as a woman who didn't mind control one of their friends and then try to absorb this girl into her body, like, what is happening here? Like, they didn't clearly present it was murky. Okay. You got to show me what's going on. And it was murky, and it wasn't in the script, and it absolutely wasn't present in the direction of the show. And if you're going to take swings like that, and you're going to say, empathize with these villains, and we're going to blow your mind and show you how they're not the villains and that your heroes are the villains, and you're going to show us how they fail, then do that honestly. And don't start the show and show me a bunch of dumb Jedis. Show me good Jedis who fail.
Is one of the problems with this, Kyle, though, that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they're giving Star Wars to very green, untested people. It's like these people are, some of these, I'd say the majority, with the exception of Leslie Headland, had like no credits to their name or very little credit to their name. I'm sorry, but Star Wars to me is not amateur hour. This is not a place to make your bones in the business. This is where you put tested and proven people.
I agree with you. I think, it should be you don't see this in other, I hate bringing up Game of Thrones, but you didn't see it in Game of Thrones, and you didn't see it in, House of the Dragon. You're watching preeminent storytellers of television directing these episodes and graduating to these episodes and writing these episodes. You're really watching masters of the craft. You look at Andor, and you've got Beau Willimon from House of Cards, and you've got Tony Gilroy.
Yeah. And
you look at the writing in that show, and you're like, God damn, these guys are good. I mean, that would have been worthy in a movie about, like, the Boston Tea Party type of patriot.
So what are they chasing? And I'm so curious. It's like, what are they chasing? Are they chasing people that cost less? Are they chasing people that they think are going to have followings on social media? Like, I'm trying to understand the motivation behind putting some of these people in these positions
in Star Wars.
Say that again.
They want new voices. They want new voices, new characters, and they want a spectrum of people that can be identified with and empathize with. And I look at it, and I don't care if a show's a female lead or a male lead. I don't care if I'm in. If it's good and I get where they're coming from, I'm in. Like, I don't think like that. I don't look at things and judge like that. I know some people want to say, well, I want to see someone that looks just like me. But good storytelling, like I started the show saying.
Well, we don't even see the damn people behind the scenes. I don't give a, I don't care at all what the people look like behind the camera.
But look, you put yourself into, when you write, you put some of yourself in.
Yes.
You put some of your experience. Even if it's science fiction, even if it's fantasy, even if it's comedy, you're putting yourself in there. Leslie Headland's a very accomplished screenwriter, filmmaker, showrunner. She's done it all. And she's putting some of herself in this. And Disney's trying to enrich the world of Star Wars with lots of different voices.
The comment that was made by Leslie Headland, where Kathleen Kennedy had supposedly said to her, "You've turned in a great Star Wars series. Now go and make it a great Leslie Headland series." To me, that just summed it all up, because Star Wars is bigger than Leslie Headland. It ended up being bigger than George Lucas at the end of the day, who was a giant in his industry. His tombstone is going to say that here lies the guy that created Star Wars. So Star Wars is bigger than these personalities. So why on earth do we have somebody saying, now go give me, if someone said to me, now go give me a great Jason Swank Star Wars, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. Nobody wants to see a Jason Swank Star Wars. They want to see great Star Wars.
Though, Jason, you're right. You're right and you're wrong. And here's what it is. When you're making something, this is an art. Film is an art. Okay, as much as we can apply science to it and say the elements that make it great, With any piece of art, you don't know why a person responds to it and receives it the way they do. A lot of it's timing, a lot of it's setting, context. It's all part of it, right? Star Wars hit at just the right time. Had Star Wars come in the early 70s, might not have worked. Had it come in the 80s, it wouldn't have had the impact. It hit just at the right time. What you want when you're a producer or a studio, good ones, hire great people and give them the freedom to go make their thing, and they challenge them just enough. They keep you honest. You need to be challenged. As much as I hate it when I'm making a movie and someone's like, what is this? What is that? What is it? It annoys you, but you go, fuck them, they're right. They pointed out this thing and I knew that was right. Because when you're making a movie, you are challenged all day with bullshit coming left, right, center, all day. You make 1,000+ choices a day and you just have to go wing it and do it. You can't say, what's the best of this? You go on instinct. And you're saying, okay, you so-and-so, Leslie Headland, you, J.J. Abrams, go make your movie. Go do it. You want to give somebody that freedom. And if you're going to get in the business of an artist and you're going to hire an artist and you're going to say, go do it, you don't go say, we're hiring you because we like all your previous stuff, but go make this schlock. And here's the list of schlock you need to do. That's bad. That's what bad studios do. And that's why we have so many bad movies out there, because there's too many cooks in the kitchen and they don't embrace the artist. But what you do need to do is pick the correct artist.
There you go. Okay. So you could say,
you don't just go pick someone because, this is different. You got to make sure that what they're coming in and telling you, their pitch, their story, their take, their POV fits with what your agenda is. If you're the spender.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Maybe the problem wasn't Kathleen Kennedy saying, okay, now go give me a good Leslie Headland Star Wars. Maybe the problem was there shouldn't have been a Leslie Headland Star Wars to begin with. Maybe that was the problem.
Maybe she had to get some stuff out of her system, personal stuff. Here's what I think. Well, George, I was like, well, Star Wars shouldn't be personal, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of it is you bring your personal experience, but it's through an amalgamation of other things, right? It's hidden. George had issues with his father, and he has Darth Vader and the father and those issues, right? But it didn't become the theme of it. It was a character. It was a relationship. It was an interesting way of handling something.
It was baked into the character along with a lot of other ingredients.
It wasn't, I want to kill my father because he's a dick. You know what I mean? It was like, I didn't have a great relationship with my father. He is an antagonist to me. It informs and pushes me. How do I reconcile with him? Now, in ACOLYTE, there is no reconciliation. If Saul was the father, it's I'm going to smother you and choke you out, bitch, is kind of what it was. Like, it wasn't like, I can see eye to eye. I can see the mistake of my father, and I can meet eye to eye and then be better and move on and be a better person. There's a difference between change and progress, right? Change is, I was hurt, and now I'm going to fuck you over. Progress is, oh, you know what? That was bad. And the people before us were bad, and they did some bad things. And moving forward, we're going to make it better for everyone together. We're going to rise together and make it better for everyone. It's not about retribution for those who
revenge.
You felt.
Yeah, revenge. Right. Now I'm the one that gets to do the hurting, so it's okay. Yeah.
It's not a very George Lucas ending to this show to say Saul hurt me and I can't identify with the choices he made, and it did hurtful things, but I can't meet him in a place of love. I guess what it is, I'm discovering this as I'm talking. There's no love in the show. It's void of love. And the secret to Star Wars is love. It was familial love. It was father-son love. It was sister-brother love. It was love.
Yeah, love of the rebels really that they had it with each other. Yeah.
That's what made Star Wars a global phenomenon. It's imbued. There's mysticism within that love. There's like united religions. And this show is hate. There's a lot of hate and negativity and justification of murder and suicide. And I'm going to choke.
Yeah, it's very dark. It's just dark, and just
It's not. And it's dark, but on the surface, like I said, it looks like an ABC Family show.
Yeah,
and you're just like, what is happening here?
Or an episode of Vampire Diaries, which I loved, by the way. But
maybe if there was a second season, a lot of that stuff would have gotten out of the way now, and we would get into some good stuff in the good time period. I don't know where I stand on another season. I'd probably prefer a book. I'd rather have them do a sequel book and wrap it up and really do a good job and get into the nuance and story and the character. But I find this show to be a fairly hateful show, not hopeful. And I'd love to see where they go.
Episode whatever, A New Hate. I do want to look at the future here, though. This is rapid fire. Just want to get your hopes for the next 3 projects that we know that are on their way. So we got Skeleton Crew December 3rd. What are your hopes for it? What are your fears?
I hope it's fun. I hope it brings back some camaraderie and magic. I hope for just some clean, good storytelling. I want to be transported to a galaxy far, far away. And I think we just need a palate cleanser right now. So I'm hoping for fun.
All right. Andor season 2, probably, I'm guessing sometime spring of 25. Maybe that'll be the May the 4th start.
I think it's going to win a bunch of Emmys.
Oh, really?
I think all the goodwill that's accumulated from people discovering the show, everyone talking about how great it is, everyone accepting that Star Wars on television can be great. And here is the prime example of it. 12 episodes, meaty, dense episodes, a large cast of characters, incredible performances. I don't want to hear anybody saying that the performances in ACOLYTE were great. They're fine at best. Andor has incredible performances. Genevieve O'Reilly, mind-blowing. Skarsgård, incredible.
Yeah.
Like Diego Luna. Everybody in the show across the board, the new characters, all great. All great.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. I think you're gonna see like it catching up to that show and it getting the accolades it deserves in season 2.
I hope so. I hope so. And lastly, I know this is a long way down, but Ahsoka season 2, as we're looking down the pipe at what's coming on Disney Plus.
I was at conflict. I loved a lot of the cast of Ahsoka. Thought really
great
good casting.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, like wonderful. I loved a lot of the myth of it. I love where Dave's going with the myth of things and trying to go big and deep and take some bold swings, and where he was going with the ending of the show. I like it. I think they need a little more time. They got to keep the roast in the oven a little longer. Do some more drafts on those scripts to make sure that they are as tight and clear as possible, because there's a difference. You can't have your emotional hook of the story be your MacGuffin. You need to know right out of the bat, and I hope that this now, maybe it's because it's behind us, we can move forward and clear. But the idea of taking the conflict between Ahsoka and Sabine and not knowing what it was and putting so much off screen for training, how that happened, what their falling out was, and letting that be the mystery was a terrible mistake. Tragic in a lot of ways.
Awful.
I think it was fundamentally ruined the show. What you wanted to do was get to that in the beginning in the pilot and then explore that, her failure and her proving that it's not who she is through those 8 or whatever episodes. That would have been a wonderful exploration of the character. I think that's out of the way now. So I think maybe Dave's unburdened by that, can go do season 2 and take these great actors and these great characters in this great period in time and do a wonderful season 2. So I'm excited about that.
Kyle, you're the best, man. You're just the best. Thank you for all the time. And again, doing this on your vacation and everything.
Of course. I was going through the show trying to figure out what's up with it. Why am I not feeling it? And I'd go on the chat rooms and I'd see people talking, and we'd have our talks, and just in all my friends, everyone writes to me. It's like, dude, why am I not feeling this show? Everyone, I'm talking 50 people like casual fans, relatives, friends from grammar school are like, dude, what's up? And I would have to feel these comments because people weren't connecting with it. And online, everyone's trying to be like, it's great. It's the greatest thing ever. Like, it's not. It's not, guys. It's okay that it's not. I know you want it to be. It's okay that it's not. Like, let's just figure out why it's not. And then try to urge that and not reward things when they're wrong and not shit on things when they're not bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of negativity. Let's lean into the positivity. And I think what was missing from the show is love. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of in the fandom. That people are really selfish and negative. You can be positive.
Maybe that's more of a reflection of society itself in the year 2024. But Kyle, I hope you got a lot off your chest. I hope this was cathartic for you. I just have to push back on one thing. One thing and one thing only. If you're going to bag on the Rolling Stones for a bad album, the album shouldn't be Steel Wheels. It should be Dirty Work.
You're right. I just went to the Steel Wheels show in Pittsburgh, and it wasn't great. The album was fine.
Oh, the live show was nice. Well, we're going to have to unpack that off the air.
Like
because
post odds and sods. You know what I mean? Nothing was good. Just like maybe we shouldn't expect good. I don't know.
Well, that's not what we're talking about here when it comes to Star Wars. And hopefully they'll start providing us with some storytelling that reaches the epic proportions fans like you demand.
Well, I hope so.
All right,
buddy.
Go back to vacation.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Talk to you soon, bud. Later.
Chewie, get us out of here!
You know, I think you said it really good, Jim, earlier when you said this is blue sky opportunity, I think, with the skeleton crew. And, you know, there was a time when I thought, I don't want to waste Star Wars on stories that aren't going to add meaningful contributions to the canon. But I got to tell you, I'm getting more and more open to it because I see sometimes the trappings and the challenges and the difficulties that go with that. And so to just kind of move the camera over here a little bit and just focus on just a fun little adventure, I'm really open to it. And I'm looking forward to Skeleton Crew because I don't get the sense by reading from Watson Ford that there's any mandate, any agenda going into this. They're not trying to reset expectations or anything. They're talking about joyful. They're talking about fun. They're talking about adventure. They're talking about kids. These are all things that I think at the very least are going to be harmless. And at best, something, well, really fun that might inspire a new generation of Star Wars fans.
It could. If it resonates with younger viewers, which we know that's the most desirable demographic in the minds of those in charge of Star Wars, is to generate a new legion of fans through the next generation. And if this show connects with younger fans in a way similar to how Stranger Things did, then they might have struck gold. We'll see. Jude Law certainly brings a great presence to it also, to keep the whole family involved. It's not just kids, thank God.
Right.
But we hope these kids go through a legitimate adventure where it doesn't matter whatever your age is watching these kids go through it. As long as the stakes are high and the characters are compelling and relatable and you care about them, then we could be in for a great ride with this show. So, out of all the Star Wars series, though, this is the hardest one to judge by its cover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the hardest book to judge by its cover. I really have no idea what we're getting into with this. The Acolyte actually turned into something I thought it would. As did, The Mandalorian was a big surprise. Andor was a big surprise. But some of these series end up being exactly like how you thought they would be, and I believe The Acolyte was like that for me. It didn't really offer any new surprises or revelations. It offered me some really quality moments.
Yeah.
But this show is really turning Star Wars inside out and thinking way outside the box. And I love the retro flair, and I just hope I love the situations, characters, and storyline as much.
Agreed. Huge thanks, by the way, to Kyle Newman for hanging out with us for such a long time in the cantina. Always great to catch up with Kyle. If you like more Rebel Force Radio in your life, the best way to do it is over on Patreon. You heard us talk about it a bit earlier. Over to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio for things like weekly full show video, exclusive podcasts, and that great community we've been telling you so much about. Many of them you hear from week after week on the after shows. We'll have those after shows come December, that's for sure. Watch us on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel where we release clips and highlights from the podcast. So if we're referring to something very visual, there's a good chance we'll put that out on the YouTube. channel, so you can check that out. We're also on all the socials, Facebook, X, and Instagram. The website for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But the best way you can help us out, the cheapest way you can help us out, costs you nothing. Just do what you're doing right now, which is to keep listening and keep telling your friends about Rebel Force Radio. We see the reviews, we see the numbers growing all the time, so please keep spreading the word about this podcast. We really appreciate it. So please subscribe if your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so. And if it allows you to write a review, we'd love to have those. We read all of them. Just one very simple rule to follow, please.
Make them good.
All right, that's going to do it. We'll see you next week for more Rebel Force Radio. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time. For RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
Bloop, 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 bloop. What? Bloop, 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 bloop. Is that what you're gonna? Is that how you're gonna do it? Blop, bloop, blab, blob.
That's how he does it, isn't it?